Right. And one of those people who's being put out of position, like literally pushed hard, is Congresswoman Liz Cheney. And Tara, I just want to play something that Congressman Matt Gaetz, who for some reason is still in Congress, what he had to say a couple days ago.
That person should not be the spokesperson of the Republican Party. We knew that then. I'm glad our colleagues have caught up. Maybe we're the leaders, Marjorie. They follow us.
Tara, they're talking about, or Matt Gaetz was talking about Liz Cheney, how she shouldn't be the spokesperson for the party. But, are those two now the spokespeople for the party? Are they the key to Kevin McCarthy becoming the next Speaker of the House?
It sounds like it, right? They are really rallying up the base in the way that Trump did. I know that they're fundraising a ton off this tour through the villages. And I just think it shows like this big tent Republican Party is like so far away afield. It's like on another reservation, you know? So I think that the problem, too, with McCarthy is that, yes, like you said, he's ambitious, but there are a lot of people underneath him who are equally as ambitious and would like to see him trip and fall. And possibly this Liz Cheney debacle could have been the way that he would have fell, and he may still fall. But, you know, at the end of the day...
Let me stop you on that point. Who's out there, other than maybe Scalise, who would challenge... Minority Leader McCarthy for the big leadership prize within the party?
I mean, Scalise mainly, but it doesn't take that many people, right? I mean, Jim Jordan is, like you said, beloved by, Scalise is beloved by the other members. Jim Jordan is beloved by Trump, who they're all afraid of. And I think at the end of the day, the Republicans have basically coalesced around the idea that they cannot win the midterms without Donald Trump. And you know, and if you're not on board with that, you are a risk to winning back the House. And for McCarthy, that means the speakership. But for the others, it's just about, you know, having power in 2022, which, again, is theirs to lose, like you said.
And you know what, Tara, to your point about, you know, the Republican Party, I don't even know if they even think of it as a bind, but they can't divorce themselves from Donald Trump. Have a listen to what Senator Lindsey Graham had to say on this very point.
I would just say to my Republican colleagues, can we move forward without President Trump? The answer is no. I've always liked Liz Cheney, but she's made a determination that the Republican Party can't grow with President Trump. I've determined we can't grow without him.
And you know what? As much, Chairman Sanders, as much as that line of argument drives me bananas, I can't help but think, you know what? Lindsey Graham actually is doing some truth-telling there. The Republican Party is nothing without Donald Trump, is it?
Yeah, no, at this point, that's exactly right. And how the mighty have fallen and sunken to the lowest of lows, that Donald Trump is your savior. The reality of it is Donald Trump 5 years ago was someone that everyone was like, well, why is he here? And now they're kicking everyone else out of the room because he is here. And so it just speaks of desperation. It's desperation of leadership. It's desperation for ideas. It's desperation for a way to move the country forward and embrace its diversity. That's what Liz Cheney has been trying to tell them. She has shown the leadership, which they are threatened by. As one of her caucus members put it, you know, she's like that girlfriend who doesn't listen to you.
Oh, my God.
Dude,
yeah.
Really? That's your go-to with Liz Cheney? So that tells you where we are.
But I mean, at the same time,
go ahead, Tara.
I was just going to say, at the same time, I mean, Donald Trump raises a ton of money for these members, right? And he brings out the base, and there's a reason why they're sticking with him. He has this, like, he won 76 million votes, you know? So at the end of the day, they can't give him up. He's more compelling than anything that they have offered. So until they find that thing that they can offer to voters to drive them out in the way that Donald Trump did, I think they're stuck with him.
But the thing they're offering is what voters don't want. No, I'm just going to say the thing they're offering, and I agree with Tara exactly, the thing they're offering, voters don't want. They rejected that. And the test is going to be how that plays out in these elections at the congressional level and the legislative level next year.
Well, you know what? To this point, the Washington Post has a story in the paper on the front page today about Liz Cheney and just the alarm bells that have been going off for her about the fact that the NRCC, the National Republican Campaign Committee, and correct me, Chairman, and if I got that acronym wrong.
Congressional Committee. Here's what they didn't say in a meeting with the caucus. The internal NRCC poll, partially shared with lawmakers in April, found that President Biden was perilously popular in core battleground districts with 54% favorability. Vice President Harris was also more popular than Trump, the poll showed. Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID stimulus plan and his $2.3 trillion jobs and infrastructure package both polled higher than the former president's favorability, which was at 41% compared to 42% in February. I mean, Congresswoman Cheney is right to be alarmed. There's only so far that, there's clinging to Trump and clinging to the grievance and the racism that goes along with it, isn't it? Yeah, it's exactly what. It's exactly what Tara put her finger on in terms of where the party is and where the party needs to be. And the fact of the matter is that Joe Biden has been able to do the thing he said he wanted to do, talk directly to Republican voters. And when he's had success with that. The Republican leadership and Trump are playing to a very small portion of the Republican base. I've been saying this for a long time. It's much bigger than the people that, 80% of Republicans, that's not a real number because there are a whole lot of folks out there that have left. There are a whole lot of folks who are still there who are not aligned with this. And that's where you're seeing these numbers now show up for Joe Biden with those Republican voters that in some sense are not being appropriately accounted for in terms of where the party is going to go.
And Tara, I'm sitting here wondering then, given everything that we've just discussed, and especially what Chairman Steele and you have said in this segment, then how is the Liz Cheney controversy within the caucus, how is it really playing for Leader McCarthy? Because from where I sit, just as regular viewer and reader, it seems like he's doing what he wants the rank and file to do. But is it helping him or is it hurting him in ways that we can't see?
That's a good question. I would say that would continue to be someone who defies him. It shows a weakness in leadership to keep her because he's already decided to put his fortunes on Trump and that being the future of the party. So every time she goes out there and defies him, there's those awkward, press conferences. It's like a vaudeville act with Cheney and then Kevin McCarthy having two different messages. It just shows, I think, to him, weak leadership. And he probably gets a mouthful from Trump every time it happens. So he's decided this is the path forward. And in his mind, she is a threat to his leadership. So, that's sort of how it goes. If somebody's getting in your way, it's just not a fun, it's politics.
If someone's getting in your way, poof. Chairman Steele, last word to you.
Poof.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, that's your last word?
The word? No, I would say that's your word of the day. Poof.
Poof.
No, I think it's right. I mean, look, the problem that Kevin McCarthy has is he's been all over the map. And it's one of the things that a lot of the caucus members don't like about his leadership style. He's not moored or anchored to anything, and they don't trust him. So the fact of the matter is he's now figured that out and says, look, I'm going to anchor to the leg of Donald Trump. That's what the whole trip to Mar-a-Lago was about, to sort of the makeup part of the program, to go down and kissy, love, hug. And I'll be right and I'll do good. And that's what you're now seeing played out. And the first victim of that, among many more to come, I hate to say, is Liz Cheney. Because those, even though they may not be the public example, the victimization of Republicans inside that caucus, those 10, for example, who voted for impeachment, what we saw play out with Mitt Romney at his state committee meeting last week, that is going to escalate more and more over the next months to hold that line, so that they can try to win that House next year and hold the Senate and get the Senate back.
Chairman Steele, I ask you this every time you come on the show, and we're leaving. So just answer the question, yes or no. Are you still a Republican?
Yes, I am. And you know why? Because it just pisses them off.